Well, we're starting a new chapter, Car Festival at Balaram's house, Monday, July 13th, 1885. Ramakrishna was sitting in Balaram's drawing room with the devotees. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning. Balaram was going to celebrate the car festival the following day. The deity Jagannath, which is a name of Krishna, and he is worshipped in Puri. Literally, it means Lord of the Universe. The deity Jagannath was worshipped daily at his house. He had a small car. It's like a cart. It's like a cute little cart, which would be drawn along the veranda to celebrate the festival. The master had been specially invited for the occasion. Sri Ramakrishna and M were talking together. Narayan, Tej Chandra, Balaram, and other devotees were in the room. The master was talking about Purna, a lad of 15. He was very eager to see the boy. Master to M, well, by which road will he come to see me? Please have Purna and Dvija meet each other. When two people are of the same age and have the same inner nature, I bring them together. There is a meaning in this. In this way, both make progress. Have you noticed Purna's longing for God? M, yes, sir. One day I was riding on a tram. He saw me from the roof of his house and ran down to the street. With great fervor, he saluted me from the street. Master, with tears in his eyes, It is because you have helped him make the contact through which he will find out the supreme ideal of his life. One doesn't act like that unless one longs for God. Narendra, the younger Narayan, and Purna, these three have a manly nature. Not so with Bhavanath. He has a womanly nature. Purna is in such an exalted state that either he will very soon give up his body, the body is useless after the realization of God, or his inner nature will within, in a few days, burst forth. He has a divine nature, the traits of a god. It makes a person less fearful of men. If you put a garland of flowers around his neck or smear his body with sandal paste or burn incense before him, he will go into samadhi. For then he will know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Narayana himself dwells in his body, that it is Narayana who has assumed the body. I've come to know about it. A few days after my first experience of the God-intoxicated state at Dakshineshwar, a lady of a Brahmin family arrived there. She had many good traits. No sooner was a garland put round her head and incense burnt before her than she went into samadhi. A few moments later, she experienced great bliss. Tears streamed from her eyes. I saluted her and said, Mother, shall I succeed? Yes, she replied. I want to see Purna once more. But how will it be possible for me? It seems he is a part of his divine incarnation. How amazing. Not a mere particle, but a part. Very intelligent, too. I understand that he's very clever in his studies. Therefore, I have hit it right. By dint of austerity, a man may obtain God as his son. By the roadside on the way to Kamarpakur is Ranjit Raya's lake. Bhagavati, the Divine Mother, was born as his daughter. Even now, people hold an annual festival there in the month of Chaitra, in the honor of this divine daughter. I feel very much like going there. Ranjit Raya was the landlord in that part of the country. Through the power of his tapasya, he obtained the Divine Mother as his daughter. He was very fond of her, and she, too, was very much attached to him. She hardly left his presence. One day, Ranjit Raya was engaged in the duties of his estate. He was very busy. The girl, with her childlike nature, was constantly interrupting him, saying, Father, what is this? What is that? Ranjit Raya tried, with sweet words, to persuade her not to disturb him, and said, My child, please leave me alone. I have much work to do. But the girl would not go away. At last, absent-mindedly, the father said, Get out of here. On this pretext, she left home. The peddler of conch shells articles was going along the road. From him, she took a pair of bracelets for her wrists. When he asked her for the price, she said that he could get the money from a certain box in her home. Then she disappeared. Nobody saw her again. In the meantime, the peddler came to the house and asked for the price of his bracelets. When she was not found to be at home, her relatives began to run about looking for her. Ranjit Raya sent people in all directions to search for her. The money owed to the peddler was found in the box, as she had indicated. Ranjit Rai was weeping bitterly when people came running to him and said they had noticed something in the lake. They all ran there and saw an arm with conch shell bracelets on the wrist being waved about the water, above the water. A moment afterwards, it disappeared. Even now, people worship her as the Divine Mother at the time of the annual festival. To M. All this is true. M. Yes, sir. Master. Narendra now believes these things. Purna was born in the element of Vishnu. I worshipped him mentally with bell leaves, and the offer was not accepted. Then I worshipped him with tulsi leaves and sandal paste. That is the note here says that the leaves of a bell tree are offered to Shiva, whereas tulsi and sandal paste are offered to Vishnu. When I offered tulsi leaves and sandal paste. That proved to be all right. God reveals himself in many ways, sometimes as a man and sometimes as in other divine forms made of spirit. One must believe in divine forms. What do you say? M. It is true, sir. Master. The Brahmani of Kamarhati, and that's Gopalma, sees many visions. She lives all by herself in a lonely room in a garden on the bank of the Ganges. She spends her time in japa. Gopala, that's the baby Krishna, sleeps with her. The master gives a start. It is not imagination, but fact. I saw that Gopala's palms were red. He walks with her. She suckles him at her breast. They talk to each other. When Narendra heard the story, he wept. Formerly, I too used to see many visions, but now in my ecstatic state, I don't see so many. I'm gradually getting over my feminine nature. I feel nowadays more like a man. Therefore, I control my emotion. I don't manifest it outwardly so much. The younger Naran has the attitude of a man. Therefore, in meditation, his mind completely merges in the ideal. He does not show emotion. Nietzsche Gopal has a feminine nature. Therefore, while he is in a spiritual mood, his body becomes distorted and twisted. It becomes flushed. To M. Well, people renounce grain by grain, but what a mood these youngsters are in. Binote said, I have to sleep with my wife. That makes me feel very bad. It's bad for an aspirant to sleep with his wife, whether he has intercourse with her or not. There is a friction of the body and also the physical warmth. What a state Dvija is passing through. In my presence, he only sways his body and fixes his glances at me. He fixes his glance at me. Is that a trifling thing? If a person gathers the whole mind and fixes it on me, then indeed he achieves everything. But what am I? It is all he. I am the machine and he is the operator. It is God alone who exists in this, meaning his body. That is why so many people are feeling more and more attracted to it. A mere touch is enough to awaken their spirituality. This attraction, this pull, is the attraction of God and none else. Tarak of Bulgaria was going home from Dakshineshwar. I clearly noticed that a flame-like thing came out of this, meaning his own body, and followed him. A few days later, Tarak came back to Dakshineshwar in a state of samadhi. He who dwells in this body placed his foot on Tarak's chest. Well, are there more youngsters like these? M. Mohit is very nice. He came to you once or twice. He's studying enough books to pass 2 university examinations. He has great longing for God. Master. That may be, but he doesn't belong to a high plane. His physical traits are also not good. He has a puggish face. But these other youngsters belong to a high plane. Many troubles and worries follow in the wake of a birth in a physical body. Further, if the person is cursed, he may have to be born 7 times. One must be very careful. One has to assume a human body if one cherishes the slightest desire. A devotee. What are the desires of those who are incarnations of God? Master smiling. I find that I have not got rid of my desires. Once I saw a holy man with a shawl, and I too wanted to put one on like it. Even now, I have that desire. I don't know whether I shall have to be born again for it. Balaram smiling. Then you will be born again just for a shawl? All laugh. Master smiling. One has to keep a good desire so that one may give up the body meditating on it. There are 4 holy places for sadhus to visit. They visit 3 and leave 1 out. Many of them leave out Puri, the place of Jagannath, so they can give up their bodies meditating on Jagannath. A man dressed in an ochre robe entered the room and greeted the master. Privately, he was in the habit of criticizing Sri Ramakrishna, so at the sight of him, Balaram laughed. Sri Ramakrishna could read a man's mind. He said to Balaram, "Never mind. Let him say I'm a cheat." Master. Sri Ramakrishna was talking to Tej Chandra. Master. I sent for you so often. Why don't you come? If you practice meditation and prayer, it will make me happy. I look upon you as my own. That is why I send for you. Tej Chandra. Sir, I have to go to the office. I'm very busy with duties. M, smiling. There was a marriage ceremony at his home, and he got leave from his office for 10 days. Master. Well, well. You say you have no leisure. You told me just now that you were going to renounce the world. Narayan. M said to us one day that this world is a wilderness. Master to M. Please tell them the story of the disciple who became unconscious after taking the medicine. His teacher arrived at the house and said he would revive if someone else swallowed a pill that he would prescribe. The disciple would get back his life, but the man who swallowed the pill would die. Please tell the other one, too, of the Hatha Yogi, who thought that his wife and children were his very own, and who feigned death with his limbs stretched out. It will do them good to hear these stories. It was noon. Sri Ramakrishna partook of the food that had been offered to the family deity Jagannath. The master often used to say that the food at Balaram's house was very pure. Afterwards, he rested a while. Late in the afternoon, Sri Ramakrishna sat with his devotees in the drawing room of Balaram's house. Chandrababu of the Kartabhaja sect was a witty Brahmin were there. The Brahmin was something of a buffoon. His words made everybody laugh. At 6 o'clock, Girish's brother Atul and Tej Chandra's brother arrived. Sri Ramakrishna was in samadhi. A few minutes later, he said, still in the ecstatic mood, can one become unconscious by meditating on consciousness? Can one lose one's mind by thinking of God? God is of the very nature of knowledge. He is the very nature of eternity, purity, and consciousness. Sri Ramakrishna said to the witty Brahmin, why do you waste your time with these frivolous jokes about insignificant worldly things? Direct your mind to God. If a man can calculate about salt, he can also calculate about sugar. Brahmin smiling, please attract me. Master, what can I do? Everything depends on your effort. Your mind is your own. Give up this trifling buffoonery and go forward toward God. You can go farther and farther along that way. The brahmachari asked the woodcutter to go forward. At first, the woodcutter found a sandalwood forest, next a silver mine, next a gold mine, and then gems and diamonds. Brahman, there's no end to this path. Master, where you find peace, there is the end. About a new visitor, Sri Ramakrishna said, I didn't find any substance in him. He seemed worthless. It was dusk. Lamps were lighted in the room. Sri Ramakrishna was meditating on the Divine Mother and chanting her name in his melodious voice. The devotees sat around him. Since Balaram was going to celebrate the car festival at his house the following day, Sri Ramakrishna intended to spend the night there. After taking some refreshments in the inner apartments, Sri Ramakrishna returned to his parlor. It was about 10 o'clock. The master said to M, please bring my towel from the other room. A bed was made for Sri Ramakrishna in the adjoining small room. About 10:30, Sri Ramakrishna lay down to sleep. It was summertime. He said to M, you had better bring a fan. He asked the disciple to fan him. At midnight, Sri Ramakrishna woke up. He said to M, don't fan me anymore, I feel chilly. And that was the end of that day. Now we move on to Tuesday, July 14th, 1885. It was the day of the car festival. Sri Ramakrishna left his bed very early in the morning. He was alone in the room, dancing and chanting the name of God. M entered and saluted the master. Other devotees arrived one by one. They saluted the master and took seats near him. Sri Ramakrishna was longing intensely for Purna. He was talking to M about him. Master, did you give Purna any instructions? M, I asked him to read the life of Chaitanya. He is familiar with the incidents of his life. I told him further that you ask people to stick to the truth. Master, how did he take it when you said about me he is an incarnation of God? M, I said to him, come with me if you want to see a person like Chaitanya. Master, anything else? M, Also that remark of yours, that when an elephant enters a small pool, there is a great splashing of water all around. Likewise, in the case of a small receptacle, emotion overflows. About his giving up a fish, I said to him, "Why have you done that? Your family will make a great fuss about it." "Master, that's good. One should keep one's feelings and emotions to oneself." It was about 6:30 in the morning, and was going to bathe in the Ganges, when suddenly the tremors of an earthquake were felt. At once he returned to Sri Ramakrishna's room. The master stood in the drawing room. The devotees stood all around him. They were talking about the earthquake. The shaking had been rather violent, and many of the devotees were frightened. "M, you should have all gone downstairs." "Master, such is the fate of the house under whose roof one lives, and still people are so egotistic." To M, "Do you remember the great storm in the month of Ashwin?" M, "Yes, sir, I was very young at that time. I was 9 or 10 years old. I was alone in the room while the storm was raging, and I prayed to God." M was surprised and said to himself, why did the master suddenly ask me about the great storm of Ashwin? Does he know that I was alone at that time, eagerly praying to God with tears in my eyes? Does he know all this? Has he been protecting me as my guru since my very birth? Master, it was quite late in the Dakshineshwar when the storm broke, but somehow they managed to cook the meals. The trees were uprooted. You see, this is the fate of the house one lives in. But when one attains perfect knowledge, then one finds that dying and killing are one and the same thing. That is to say, they're both unreal. When one is dead, one has not really died, and when one has killed another, the man is not really dead. Both the Leela and the Nitya belong to the same reality. In one form it is the absolute, and with the other the Leela. Even though the Leela is destroyed, the Nitya always exists. Water is water, whether in still or in waves. It is the same water when the waves quiet down. Sri Ramakrishna was in the drawing room with the devotees. Mahendra Mukherjee, Hari, the younger Naran, and many other devotees were there. Hari lived alone and studied Vedanta. He was about 23 years old and unmarried. He later became Swami Turiyananda. Sri Ramakrishna was very fond of him. He wanted Hari to visit him frequently, but since Hari loved solitude, he did not come often to the master. Master to Hari, "Well, I haven't seen you in a long time." You see, in one form he is the absolute, and in another he is the relative. What does the Vedanta teach? Brahman alone is real, and the world is illusory. Isn't that so? But as long as God keeps the ego of a devotee in a man, the relative is also real. But when he completely effaces the ego, then what is remains. That cannot be described by the tongue. But as long as God keeps the ego, one must accept all. By removing the outer sheaths of the plantain tree, you reach the inner pith. As long as the tree contains sheaths, it also contains pith. So also, as long as it contains pith, it also contains the sheaths. The pith goes with the sheaths, and the sheaths go with the pith. In the same way, when you speak of the Nitya, it is understood that the Leela also exists. And when you speak of the Leela, it is understood that the Nitya also exists. That is, Leela is the relative, the play of God, as you will, and the Nitya is the eternal, the unchanging. It is He alone who has become the universe, living beings, and 24 cosmic principles. When He is actionless, I call Him Brahman. When He creates, preserves, and destroys, I call Him Shakti. Brahman and Shakti are not different from each other. Water is water, whether it is still or moving. It is not possible to rid oneself of I consciousness. As long as one is aware of this I consciousness, one cannot speak of the universe and its living beings as unreal. You cannot get the correct weight of a bell fruit if you leave out the shell and the pits. The brick, lime, and brick dust of which the stairs are made are the same brick, lime, and brick dust of which the roof is made. The universe and its living beings exist on the account of the reality of Him who was known as Brahman. The devotees, the Vijnanis, accept both God with form and the formless, both the personal God and the impersonal. In a shoreless ocean, an infinite expanse of water, visible blocks of ice are formed there, and are formed here and there by intense cold. Similarly, under the cooling influence, so to say, of the deep love of the worshiper, the infinite reduces itself to the finite and appears before the worshiper as God with form. Again, on the rising of the sun, the ice melts away. So on the awakening of knowledge, God with form melts away into that same infinite and formless. As long as a man analyzes with the mind, he cannot reach the absolute. As long as you reason with your mind, you have no way of getting rid of the universe and the objects of the senses, form, taste, smell, touch, and sound. When reasoning stops, you attain the knowledge of Brahman. Atman cannot be realized through the mind. Atman is realized through Atman alone. Pure mind, pure buddhi, pure Atman, all these are one and the same. Just think how many things you need to perceive an object. You need eyes, you need light, you need mind. You cannot perceive an object if you leave out any of these three. As long as the mind functions, how can you say that the universe and the I do not exist? When the mind is annihilated, when it stops deliberating pro and con, then one goes into samadhi. Then one attains the knowledge of Brahman. You know the 7 notes of a scale, sa, re, ga, ma, pa, ta, ni. One cannot keep one voice on ni very long. That's the highest note. Looking at the younger Narayan, Sri Ramakrishna said, what will you gain by being merely intuitively aware of God's existence? A mere vision of God is by no means everything. You have to bring him into your room. You have to talk to him. Some have heard of milk, some have seen milk, and some have drunk milk. Some have seen the king, but only 1 or 2 can bring the king home and entertain him. M went to the Ganges to take his bath. It was 10 o'clock. Sri Ramakrishna was still talking with the devotees. After finishing his bath, M returned to Balaram's house. He saluted the master and sat down near him. Sri Ramakrishna was filled with intense spiritual fervor. Words of wisdom flowed from him. Now and then he narrated his profound mystical experiences to the devotees. Master, I went to Benares with Mathur Babu. Our boat was passing the Manikarnika Ghat on the Ganges, when suddenly I had a vision of Shiva. I stood near the edge of the boat and went into samadhi. The boatman, fearing I might fall into the water, cried to Hriday, catch hold of him, catch hold of him. I saw Shiva standing on that ghat, embodying in himself all the seriousness of the world. At first I saw him standing at a distance, and then I saw him approaching me. At last he merged into me. Another time, in an ecstatic mood, I saw that a sannyasi was leading me by the hand. We entered a temple, and I had a vision of Annapurna made of gold. God alone has become all this, but he manifests himself more in certain things than others. To M. Perhaps you do not believe in the shalagram. Englishmen, that is, Indians who were educated in the English system of rationality, do not believe in it. It doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not. A shalagram should contain the mark of a disc and other signs. Only then can it be worshipped as an emblem of God. Yes, sir. It is like a fuller manifestation of God in a man with good physical traits. Master, at first Narendra used to say that they were figments of my imagination, but now he accepts everything. Sri Ramakrishna was describing the vision of God when he went into samadhi. The devotees looked at him with a fixed gaze. After a long time, he regained consciousness of the world and talked to the devotees. Master to M. What do you think I saw? I saw the whole universe as a shalagram, and in it I saw your 2 eyes. In silent wonder, M and the devotees listened to these words about the inner experience. At this moment, Sarada, another young disciple of the master, entered the room and saluted him. I believe that has to be Sarda Prasanna, which would later become Swami Trigunatitananda. Master to Sarda, why don't you come to Dakshineshwar? Why don't you see me when I come to Calcutta? Sarda, nobody tells me about it. Master, next time I shall let you know. To M, smiling, make a list of these youngsters. M and the devotees laugh. Sarda, my relatives at home want me to marry, pointing to M. How many times he has scolded me about marriage. Master, why should you marry just now? To M. Sarda is now in a very good state of mind. Formerly he had a hesitant look. Now his face beams with joy. And I think that is a good place to stop. So, it was a lot of material. Anything, any questions, any answers, anything stuck in anyone's craw? No craw problems, okay. All right, then, we have some announcements. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., Swami Medhananda will give the talk, Do You Really Believe in Reincarnation? That's indeed the topic, 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Wednesday, we will be having our reading of Glimpses of a Great Soul, a portrait of Swami Sardananda. And a week from today, we will also have our reading of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna at 5 o'clock. Okay, any other comments? Okay. All right, then we'll close with a chant. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for joining. And enjoy the sunshine while we can. Jai Ma.